Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing a bit of Monoblack midrange. This is a deck that is making a few waves in challenges, it's putting up some reasonable numbers, and it's just playing some good old-fashioned Magic the Gathering. We've got our Nethergoyfs and Stalactite Stalkers to beat down early doors, you know, we've got some Mishra's Baubles and fetch lands to power them up. We've got our disruptive threats on 2 in Dauthi Voidwalker and Orcish Bowmasters. Then we've got the big Barrowgoyf at top of our curve, just one of the best creatures in Legacy, completely changing the format in a lot of ways because it allows combat decks to just pivot into a really good beatdown plan as well. So we're taking use of this nice, tasty creature that can find us more threats. And we're backing this up with some hand disruption. We've got Thoughtseize and Hymn to Tourach. What's not to love about Hymn to Tourach? Just a classic, an absolute banger this one. And we've got some removal in Fatal Push and Sheoldred's Edict. And then we're just rounding this out with some Dark Rituals so we can do stuff a little bit ahead of curve. So some pretty fair, old style looking Magic the Gathering here where we're just kind of playing out some threats and disruptive elements and just getting there. Our mana base has a bunch of fetches to power out our Stalactite Stalker as well as making our Nethergoyf slightly bigger to make sure we've always got a land in the bin. We've got Wastelands, another disruptive element, and one Surveil land which can maybe trick our opponent into playing around counter spells sometimes. And then just a bunch of basics. We're not messing around with any sort of weird utility lands here, like Castle Lock Plains or anything like that. That's not what we're about. I've obviously been a big proponent of Monoblack mid-rangey decks. I did some of the innovating on it a couple of years ago and played it for European Legacy Masters, but the decks look very different then because we were running things like Troll of Khazad-dûm. So this deck is just more like a fair, classic beatdown deck really, and I'm looking forward to playing it. On our sideboard, what do we have? Well, we've got a bit more hand disruption, we've got some different disruptive threats in Opposition Agent and the Plague Engineer, we've got some Graveyard Hate and Faerie Macabres, we've got the Liliana the Veil as like a nice way that we can start draining cards out of our opponent. We've got some Snuff Outs when we need a bit more removal, Powder Keg to remove some stuff that Black struggles with normally, and then a Null Rod and a couple of Spellbombs for other matchups as well. Should we be running Leyline of the Void here? Possibly. The reason this deck doesn't run Leyline of the Void is because you want to be able to hit your Faerie Macabres off of your Barrowgoyf, but we will see if that's something that we're going to regret not having access to. Alright, that's the deck. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel and doesn't cost you anything. And let's start jamming some Monoblack midrange. The lovely people over at 3for1 Trading are doing a spring sale from May 7th to May 12th. Get 5% off of all orders over $500 with free worldwide shipping by using the code SPRINGSALE25. Their support helps make this channel viable for me, so support them by clicking the link in the description of this video to browse their enormous inventory and find whatever you need for your Magic collection. Okay, our opener here is a little bit too land heavy. We're going to mulligan this one. Our opponent is also known for playing some slightly more combo-y looking decks, so having some disruptive elements to help against that would not be the worst. We've got 2 more shots to hit a second land for this Hymn to Tourach, but we can still wasteland our opponent and maybe get some work done. I will keep this and we're going to, I think, get rid of the Fatal Push purely because our opponent tends to be more combo-y, so hitting like a big creature is probably going to be more relevant than a Fatal Push here. In the blind, I think the Fatal Push would be slightly better, but our opponent likes their sort of show and tell or hybrid reanimator decks, so something like a Sheoldred's Edict is more likely to actually have some purchase here. So we're going to throw back the Fatal Push, and we can begin the game with the Stalactite Stalker. We have a decision to make what we're doing with this Mishra's Bauble. So we could scale this up. This is only at the end of your end step, so we can't crack it in our opponent's turn and get a card still before our next draw step. So if we want to hit the second black source, we should be playing out this Mishra's Bauble. It's unfortunate, but it is the case, because I would like to use that to get an additional piece of action on our Stalactite Stalker. Get to descend a bit more, but like I said, we do have the Wasteland, so we do have another counter we can put on this, and 3 power is a pretty reasonable size for a 1-drop creature. Are they going to play the land we know, or are they going to play a different land? They're playing the land we know. I'm expecting something like a Ponder this turn, but it's certainly possible they Dark Ritual into something really spooky and we die. A basic island, so the Wasteland not having a lot of purchase. We can Wasteland ourselves if we want to, but because we cracked the Bauble, we drew our card and it was a Polluted Delta. So we do have access to Hymn to Tourach and growing our Stalker, and then the turn after we can maybe use this Wasteland to attack our opponent's mana base, but we'll see. They did not shuffle the Ponder. We got a Chrome Mox coming in. Okay, are they going to put some green underneath it? Yes, they put some green underneath it. So this is going to give them... Alright, so I thought we were going to get hit by a Veil of Summer, but it looks like our opponent might be on something possibly a bit fairer. Hard to say. Rakshas's Bargain is obviously a card that digs a lot and puts cards in the graveyard. Losing the Hymns to Tourach does make me sad. But we have a Surveil land ready to go. Orcish Bowmasters also pretty darn good here. So we'll attack with this Stalker. I think we're going to play a Sorcery Speed Bowmaster. Just that way our opponent can't brainstorm over the top. I still think our opponent is probably doing something a bit combo-y. Like the Chrome Mox tends to be a combo-related card. Although given the card advantage you can get off a Rakshas's Bargain and like a Beanstalk deck, maybe Chrome Mox might work. It's a bit like anyone who is an old boomer who remembers the old extended control decks that were like blue control decks that used to run Chrome Mox just because you needed to push yourself ahead curve-wise sometimes. And they could recoup the card advantage later. So maybe that's an interesting thing to experiment with Beanstalk. I don't know if that's what our opponent's doing, but maybe that's something that I'll experiment with in the future as well. Alright, an Underground Sea. So this will enable our Wasteland for next turn, but we might just be dead this turn. There is an Entomb. We don't really have a lot of recourse about this in our main deck. There is an Emrakul Eon's Taunt, so we're going to get Shallow Graved here. That is a Shallow Grave. So we're going to lose all of our permanents and 15 life. I don't think this is going to go well for us. I guess we'll play it out to see a little bit more of our opponent's deck, because I don't know what's going on, and it's quite interesting seeing what Joel's always playing, because it's always something a little bit spicy. And it'd be nice to see it ourselves, and for you lovely people at home. And we might see something useful that we can rely upon later when we're doing our sideboarding. Alright, we're going to try and take our opponent off of mana and see if this can keep us alive for enough time to maybe get a threat in. I don't believe we're going to win this game, but if we can see some more information, that'd be handy. Ponder, sure. But if we draw runner on black lands, we can deploy like a Dauthi Voidwalker, and that's going to be very good against our opponent's graveyard thing, so maybe they can't get the second wave they need if we got a Dauthi Voidwalker in play. That's what we're hoping for. We do need to draw a black source, so that's step one. So one more of these, and we can jam in a Dauthi Voidwalker. Mistrise Village was milled over. That's not a surprise that it's in our opponent's deck. Is this the show and tell? It's just a Rakshas's Bargain. There are two big monsters going into the graveyard here. This means that our Dauthi Voidwalker is unlikely to do a lot. We're going to be one turn too slow if we draw a land this turn. We did not draw a land. So they probably just dug 4 deep, put the monsters in the graveyard and put some reanimation spells or cantrips in their hand. So I think we're going to a sideboard game very soon. I wonder if our opponent is even running a show and tell plan. There might just be a sideboard plan here. Because like, we can work out some of the numbers of what our opponent's doing here. Because obviously they're going to have a bunch of these Rakshas's Bargains and cantrips. They're running Grizzlebrand and Archon. This is going to kill us, isn't it? Cool, that'll do. So I don't think they're running show and tell. Not that it necessarily makes a dramatic change. I think their sideboarding might involve a few copies of show and tell though. So Duress is good, Spellbombs are good, Faerie Macabres are good. I don't want the Liliana, that's not really where we're about here. Do we think our opponent is going to have some sort of pivot plan into just some big monsters? Possibly. We'll take out this Fatal Pushes. We'll keep in the Edicts, I guess. Thoughtseizing is useful. Hymns to Tourach can wipe one of their guys, but I still think it's a fundamentally good thing for us to be doing. Barrowgoyf is pretty solid. If we're boarding in Spellbombs, we can probably board out the Baubles, because they're just like for like in terms of types and things that give us, not Delirium, what's it called? Descend? Descended, yeah. Cool. Alright, so we're going to board like this. Okay, so turn 1 Duress, not a bad place to be. Turn 2 Dauthi Voidwalker, also a nice place for us to be. And then we can just double up on Dauthi Voidwalker to make it harder for our opponent to get out from underneath it. And then just Big Daddy Barrowgoyf can come and start swinging. Now obviously they can reanimate stuff that we mill over with Barrowgoyf, which is an important thing to note. We're not going to use our fetch land until we need to, because we might be able to get a Surveil land with it or trigger Descend. Okay, we have a Thoughtseize. They have a turn 1 show and tell but nothing to put in. I don't care about being Thoughtseized here. Let me just take the show and tell and just make it harder for our opponent. So yeah, this is probably a sideboard plan. They can take one of our Voidwalkers, that's fine. Because we have another one. They could take the Barrowgoyf and then maybe try and reanimate that later if they've still got reanimation plans going on. But if we don't take that show and tell, they top deck a monster, then we're going to feel pretty salty about that. So I think it's correct just to hit the show and tell. Right, they took our Barrowgoyf. So we know our opponent's got a Ponder in hand. Would I like to lock that Ponder down with this Bowmaster? Or get the Dauthi Voidwalker running? I think I want to lock the Ponder down. Now that could be a little bit risky. But we only have one Bowmaster. And we have multiple Dauthi Voidwalkers, so they can't Thoughtseize this away. And I think Bowmaster is going to be a very effective tool to mess with our opponent. It's very unlikely they can cantrip their way into a win this turn. They're going to have to put something underneath this Chrome Mox. And that's going to leave them with only one mystery card and this Ponder. Okay, they just put the Ponder underneath it. They don't want to cantrip with it. Sure. They have one mystery card in hand. So they can't put a monster into the graveyard and reanimate it this turn. They could put a monster in there to avoid the Dauthi Voidwalker later, though. They stock up. Sure. So that doesn't get impacted by the Bowmasters. But now we can deploy Dauthi Voidwalkers. Faerie Macabre isn't the worst thing to have access to here. Alright, let's just make a Dauthi Voidwalker. Attack with a squad. And carry on with life. That's a Ponder. So this is going to trigger our Bowmasters. But they're in a situation where they just have to do this. Which is... I mention it sometimes. This is one of the reasons I actually like Bowmasters. It doesn't say you can't draw cards. It says you can do the cards. You can make the calculation that it's worth you taking the damage here to cast a Ponder. Which I think is a more interesting play pattern than anything like a Hull Breacher or a Narset. I much prefer playing against Bowmasters to Hull Breacher or Narset. I think it makes an interesting decision tree happen instead of just you don't get to make a decision. Right, there goes the Mishra's Village. A Thoughtseize, that's a nice one to have access to. We do it before we attack in case they have a giant monster that we can just play with the Dauthi Voidwalker. So they have an Emrakul or something here, then this is probably lights out. This is going to be like Drown in the Lock or something. We can pay through a daze here. The long goodbye on our little friend here. I will get this free Ponder, I suppose. Yeah, so they probably have a big monster in hand. They did not have a big monster in hand. Okay, I will take the Entomb. And that leaves them with Brainstorm and Ancient Tomb. Now, there's the Ponder that we can cast. Okay, so we'll cast this Ponder first. Another Bowmasters is nice, but I kind of just want some more mana, to be honest. So there's an Edict and a Shuffle, I think. Right, do I want to take our opponent's Brainstorm? I don't think so. We could take the Brainstorm and just leave them with nothing. That's relatively mana efficient as a play. Our opponent would have to Brainstorm into the win here. Whereas if we wait a turn, maybe they draw one of the pieces and then we can take... So if they Brainstorm here, they take +6 damage effectively. And then they'll be dead. So they can't Brainstorm unless they're going to immediately win. So I think we save the Thoughtseize till next turn. And then if they draw like half of their combo, because they basically just can't cast this anyway, then we get to go. The only way that this Brainstorm works is if they Brainstorm into exactly the win. But we have to beat for a few turns here, so it might be better to hold this Thoughtseize. Alright, they are going for the do or die play here. That's pretty reasonable. Here comes the owl, says our opponent. But again, our opponent has the choice to make this play. They do need to win right now. Are we going to be punished for our non-Thoughtseizing here? They can remove the Orc army. They're entombing. We have the Faerie Macabre, which is one of the reasons why I'm okay with this. I think if we don't have the Faerie Macabre, then maybe we do things differently. Another Brainstorm over the top. Okay. So this is an attempt at a shallow grave. There's a lot of hurt coming our opponent's way. We have our opponent dead on board. So do they have a trick? They could have like a bounce spell for our Orc army. That would keep them alive for a turn. A shallow grave. I will get rid of the only creature in our opponent's graveyard. Alright. We got there. I don't think we want to do anything differently here. We could play something like an opposition just to hate on the card Entomb. Do I like that more than a Barrowgoyf? Barrowgoyf can find us more Dauthi Voidwalkers or Orcish Bowmasters. We'll try a couple of opposition agents though. I think they're worth a go. It's just another line of interaction. That's what we need to do in this matchup is interact. Because normally if the Barrowgoyf's hitting like once or twice, we probably don't need more creatures. We probably just have our opponent dead at that point. We shall see. We also have to worry about them reanimating our Barrowgoyf, whereas them reanimating the opposition agent isn't as scary for us, really. I would like to have a hand that can cast our spells, so we're going to mulligan this one. This is turn 1, Thoughtseize plus Dauthi Voidwalker. That is a pretty spicy meatball there. I'll take that and we'll get rid of one of these Wastelands. Now, if they Thoughtseize us first, then things can get a little bit interesting. If they just make a giant monster on turn 1, then we die. Okay, so we're looking at Ponder here. So they can float the card on top, so we need to look to see if they're going to shuffle this or not. They shuffle their library, so they're not floating anything on top that they want to draw. This is good news for us. A Nethergoyf. Okay, I would like to cast a Dark Ritual. So we have two options here. We can either Thoughtseize Dauthi Voidwalker or Dauthi Voidwalker Thoughtseize. I think I'm going to play the Voidwalker first. The upside there is just higher for us. And they're probably going to fight over either of these spells if they can. Alright, there is a Force of Will. Sure. Now we will follow up with a Thoughtseize. Unattractor. Yes, so they had to do this, otherwise we take the Attractor. Now the issue here is we're putting the Attractor directly into our opponent's graveyard. Which certainly comes at a little bit of a cost. Alright, Ponder on top is a nice one for our opponent to have. Our Nethergoyf is going to be huge when we get to drop it. Alright, Nihil Spellbomb, an excellent draw. So here comes the Ponder. We just need them to not find a reanimate. Or they haven't shown us a reanimate, I don't think. They've only shown us Shallow Grave. They shuffled off the Ponder. That's good news for us. There is the Forest. I'm going to play the Nihil Spellbomb around a Daze. I think that's the important one to get down first. If the Nethergoyf gets countered, we can maybe bring it back later anyway. But 1 mana, 5/6. Pretty darn tasty. A Brainstorm, go ahead. So they've got this land in hand they know will get eaten by our Wasteland. So they have to be careful about when they use this because it's their only black source at present. Now they can obviously shuffle this back in with a Brainstorm Fetch Land combo here. And just go and find a basic Swamp instead. But it's just more pressure on the resources our opponent has when we're displaying ways of interacting with them. They are playing out the Underground Sea. Okay, so this could be baiting us in to use the Wasteland potentially. Is there any black source? Right, let's crack in with the Nethergoyf. What are we going to see here? The long goodbye. Goodbye. Okay, I will take our opponent's only black source. We have the ability to Dark Ritual stuff out if we need to. We can crack this Nihil Spellbomb and draw a card. Our opponent's only got 1 card in hand. Now, by getting rid of that Wasteland, it takes us further away from rebuying the Nethergoyf. But if we rebuy the Nethergoyf, it's going to be pretty small anyway at this point of the game. Are we using our Nihil Spellbomb here? We do need to get something moving. I think I like taking their stuff out now. They have a creature in there they can reanimate. Alright, we found our next land. That's something. A Barrowgoyf. Alright, that's a pretty phenomenally sized creature. Big Daddy Barrowgoyf. We haven't seen a Daze yet, so I'm not expecting it, but we'll see. Okay, they had Forcible Blue card as their last 2 cards. Understood. If we find another land, it's going to be easier to play out this Nethergoyf now. So we need to exile any number of cards with 4 or more types from among them. So we can get rid of an artifact, a creature, a land, and an instant without changing the size. So our next land is pretty big game. Our opponent is living off the top. Alright, let's get back Baby Goyf. So we get rid of one of our lands, one of our Dark Rituals, one of our creatures. We'll get rid of the one that I don't want to see reanimated. And we'll get rid of one of our artifacts. And we still have a big friend here. Ponder, not a bad way to try and fix things for our opponent. But they were also stuck underneath their own Brainstorm for a little while. So now they're out of that. They have kept the cards on top. It might have just been they wanted the 1 land and then they're going to shuffle. I would quite like a piece of Graveyard Hate here. That is not a piece of Graveyard Hate. Right, bash in for 5. We'll play a little Stalker. This is something that can eat an Archon of Cruelty trigger. And then we can Sheoldred's Edict it away. So we're playing nicely around some worst case scenarios. Alright, so they only wanted the land from this. That's what I'm taking. from the way our opponents played that one. So now they have black mana, so they might be able to entomb or put something in the bin that way, but they need a second black mana to animate. So if they had an entomb, they would have cast it on our end step. Sultai mana, what do you have? Rakshas's Bargain, most likely. There it is. So we've got ourselves 6 damage coming in. That is a 2-turn clock. It's nice to see Rakshas's Bargain being used in like a combo deck. I think that's really interesting. Because obviously the immediate thing is, okay, this goes in Bug Beans. But it's really good for what our opponent's trying to do. Put stuff in the graveyard and dig into ways of bringing stuff back from the graveyard. So Joel's always an interesting person, innovating a lot within their little space of Legacy. I like this a lot. Alright, Polluted Delta is helpful. Smash for 6. We have to crack this on our turn because our opponent's turn doesn't count for Stalactite Stalker. So we get our Surveil Land now. A Faerie Macabre. I think that is an above average draw, but we don't really have the way of drawing this right now. I will leave it on top. Let's say our opponent has a long goodbye here, takes out one of our creatures. We at least have the graveyard covered. A Ponder. That's not an immediate show and tell to ruin our day, but it is getting them towards doing that. The time our opponent's taking on this Ponder makes me think that they have something that buys them another turn, rather than just a way of winning the game. They've gone for a shuffle. Stock up. What is their solution to our 2 lethal attackers? They haven't played a land yet, so they could play land Fatal Push and take out the Nethergoyf. I haven't really seen Fatal Pushes though. We've seen long goodbyes. Alright, we've got the GGs in chat. Alright, so 1 round in and we managed to put a win on the board against the combo deck. Pretty cool looking deck though. Let's go to round 2. No hand disruption, but we've got a creature that's going to grow. We've got some removal and we've got some land destruction. As a snow-covered forest into Utopia Sprawl. We're doing some Enchantress action. So we have something that actually kills an Enchantress, which is a little bit rare. Because Enchantress has Shroud. But we can actually get through that with the Sheoldred's Edict. So they might be able to get 1 card off of it. We could also just play the Bowmaster and start pinging through all their card draws. That is certainly a line. So there is our go-to Enchantress. They're going to follow up with probably another pay 1, put a thing on a thing. This is a mandatory draw card as well. It's not a may. So we can either remove this or get the Bowmasters in and try and limit our opponent that way. I quite like attacking with the Nethergoyf here. And before damage, I'm going to flash this in. Just in case they have counter magic, I would like to be able to have another creature in the graveyard to get 1 additional point of damage in. But we're going for the more aggressive line of, if our opponent draws cards, we get to make a massive guy and ping some stuff. And then next turn we can Sheoldred's Edict. On thin ice. So we get a ping off here. Alright, goodbye Bowmasters. They're going to follow this up with another play. A Sterling Grove. Sure, so this is basically just a tutor most of the time. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. This is going to put a different type into our graveyard. And then we can attack for 4. It's a quarter of our opponent's life total. I'm going to play a Surveil Land here. Or have access to a Surveil Land. We could play the Wasteland and take out a Besage, but I just don't think that's particularly useful. So Sterling Grove being sacked, what are they getting? Sithis. So this is something that we can immediately shoot down with a Fatal Push. There is the Sithis. So this will give their guy Shroud, so we definitely need to kill their creature right now. Get out of here. Right, so they get 1 card and 1 life off this. Then they have a Sterling Grove they can sack to go and find anything else. A Stalactite Stalker. What is the play here? So we could just play Stalker Barrowgoyf. So this is 4 damage coming in now. That'll put them to 9. Take another 4 next turn, and this is lethal. So I think that is the correct play. We're going to play some stuff pre-combat, just in case they have any sort of interaction that puts a creature... Okay, they've just F6'd over there, so we just let them take their damage. And we'll descend and go and get ourselves a little Stalkery friend. So we have lethal damage. Our opponent can crack the Sterling Grove, and they can find something like a Solitary Confinement if they've got some cards to get through this. But we'll see. Enchantress's Presence. That is an expensive card that doesn't immediately impact the board, which is not what they need right now. We have a removal spell loaded for Sithis. This will also pump our Goyfs by 1, so it won't actually change the amount of damage we have if we sacrifice this guy. On Thin Ice. That is going to remove our Barrowgoyf, I suspect. Goodbye, Barrowgoyf. A Windswept Heath. Have we got any additional interaction? That would be awkward for us. Utopia Sprawl. That's going to draw them a card. So we've got 2, 4, 6 damage. We need to find another 2 damage from somewhere. Okay. So we need like a Bowmasters here. Works. A Stalactite Stalker. So this has Menace, so they can't block anyway. Okay, I will play a Wasteland here. I will play a Stalker. And then we go to attacks. And then this will... we can sacrifice our untapped one to do this. Because it's about to grow. So we'll take out one of their lands just to make their life a little more difficult. This will get a trigger. They'll both get a trigger. And then we'll sacrifice the little one to kill this. So we have 3 lethal threats. But our opponent's got some... Yep, so here we go. Solitary Confinement. Now, can we make our way through a Solitary Confinement? Uncertain. So this is prevent all damage, right? Do we have anything that beats this? That is a question. Doesn't look like we have anything that beats this. That is not ideal. Oh, sorry, we can't target them. We have Shroud. So we have to target ourselves. Sheoldred's Edict. That can take out the Argothian Enchantress in their upkeep. Yes, because this doesn't target, right? Each opponent sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice. So we're basically just trying to make it so our opponent can't fuel their Solitary Confinement. So I have to discard a card every turn. So that was just a land. They got 2 cards in hand. An Oblivion Ring. Sure. We just need them to just brick into lands here. Which is possible. They're only drawing 1 card a turn. 4 mana. Helm of Obedience. Okay. So they have 1 card in hand they have to discard. So we're pretty close. We have a Surveil land, so we'll play this out. No point attacking because it prevents all damage. So our opponent has to discard a card in their upkeep or they lose Solitary Confinement. Okay. So now they can draw... they have a chance of drawing a Rest in Peace here. Or maybe that was the card that was in their hand anyway. A Destiny Spinner. Okay, this can make some pretty large friends. So how much mana is this making? 2 mana here. Right, we'll do some maths in a second. What do we have on top? A land that we don't want. Sure, easy choice. So this makes 2 mana. This makes 2 mana. So that's 4 mana. So they can turn a land into a massive friend. So if we attack with both creatures, we don't get there. However, we do have an Orcish Bowmaster. So if they cast a spell, we just get to ping them down and win the game. We're going to mill 4 of our cards. We did not find a guy. I would like you to cast an enchantment, please. That's the one. This is the last 2 points of damage we require to win the game. So what they're going to do is they're going to activate the Helm of Obedience looking for one of our Bowmasters. Nope, they're not going to do that. You could do that, look for a Bowmasters, kill the Bowmasters so they only need to get 1 ping. Alright, that was really tight as it turns out. So what do I like here? Powder Keg. That seems alright. They've got some tutors, so maybe this is okay. Duress obviously looks pretty good. Plague Engineer can kill their Enchantress. That's relevant. These cards are also somewhat relevant. So Fatal Push kills Sithis. We obviously like the discard elements here. So Fatal Push can kill Sithis. That's important. The Sheoldred's Edict can also kill their things. I think these are just better than Snuff Outs. I think the Liliana's pretty good at killing stuff. And also makes it difficult for them to maintain a Solitary Confinement lock. So I think that's also pretty good here. Dauthi Voidwalker, not the most relevant, but fine. I think we trim a couple of these things. And we end up looking something along the lines of this. Maybe trim a Bauble. I think that's okay. Do I want the opposition agents over Barrowgoyf? Barrowgoyf finding us more disruptive threats is kind of a big part of how our deck functions. Yeah, I think we're just going to send it like this. Maybe we have too many Fatal Pushes, but we can kill Sithis and we can kill Destiny Spinner. That's important. No black mana, otherwise this hand would be pretty interesting. Let's say this was a black source. We'd have one type, 2 type, 3 types in graveyard. So we have 2, 3, 4 on turn 1. Pretty cool. Okay, we can disrupt them. Do we take in this Fatal Push away? We could just take the Ritual, get rid of that, and just have some stable mana. I'll get rid of the Fatal Push, actually. Because their best guy we can't actually interact with the Fatal Push. This is a Snow-Covered Plains. They're holding up removal spell for our first creature. I would like to Duress my opponent. What are you up to over there? 2 Enchantress's Presence, and then some other guys. Okay. There is a forest. We're going to see an Argothian Enchantress. And this turn we go get ourselves a swamp. Now we Dark Ritual and cast 2 2-drops. So cast sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. And then we hymn our opponent. It's good old-fashioned magic going there. We took the Enchantress's Presence and the Destiny Spinner. Oh, savage. I will cast this and I will try and dig our way towards another card. So they got a removal spell. Sure. But we need some action. Our first creature is not going to be great action because they have an answer. But maybe we can get the Bowmasters doing some work soon. What do they draw? Is this another Enchantress's Presence? Or another... It is another Enchantress's Presence. Okay. They've drawn 3 of them. Not too shabby. I'll play this Wasteland and I will pass. There's no point playing out the Bowmasters just yet, especially when they're sat there with a removal spell for it. We could play the Bowmasters right now and just start pressuring. I don't hate that. We will still ping them when they cast us onto ice. Okay, I'll play a Wasteland. I'll attack for some damages. And now our opponent has a horrible decision to make. Do you on thin ice our 6/7, or do you on thin ice the thing that shuts your deck down and gives us a bunch of free pings? Because neither of those situations are good for our opponent. On thin ice. So they draw a card, we ping them to the face. What are you going to kill? It's the Barrowgoyf. Sure. Makes sense. It's still awkward for our opponent though. Another Bowmasters. I think we flash this in still. It's just getting an extra point of damage in here might be relevant later on. Our opponent can sometimes stabilize on a very low life total using Solitary Confinement. We just want to shut that down. So now we have 2 Bowmasters. So every enchantment they cast is going to ping them for a whole bunch here. Now they've got an Enchantress as well. Okay, let's attack with all of our friends. Which is only a 0/1. They can't flash anything like an Endurance, even if they have that in their deck, which I'm not sure they do. This is our Surveil land. Let's pass it over. Alright, we got the match. So we're cruising 2-0. Let's go to round number 3. Interesting. We're going to keep this. We're on the draw, so maybe we draw something that changes our hand. We will hopefully have some information if we're trying to Thoughtseize or if we're trying to make a Stalker. Okay, I think we just go and make a Stalker here. If our opponent wants to interact with it, that's fine. We can trade some resources backwards and forwards. Eventually we'll stick the Barrowgoyf and that will beat our opponent. I'm imagining our opponent's deck with a mountain in it is going to be a blue-red deck. Oh, an Arab Mesa. We might be on something very different here. Red. Is this going to be like the Tony Schiavone Prowess deck? I think it is. This deck is pretty cool. You should definitely watch Tony's channel. I enjoyed this video of his where he was just doing this. So it's got like the Angry Bird, whose name I can never remember, that gets bigger whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Alright, we're on a slightly different approach to what I thought. I thought this was going to be a straight blue-red running a single mountain. But I am off the mark here. So... do I want to trade here? I don't think I do. Alright, so our spells are going to resolve, which is really good to know. So what are we doing here? I think we go for Swamp, Stalker, Bauble. This is going to trigger all of our stuff. Another Corrie Steel Cutter on top of their library. Do I want to Thoughtseize here or do I want to Fatal Push to take out the Channeler? I think this Thoughtseize isn't getting much better, so I think we're going to fire this off now. Okay, Lightning Bolt, Corrie Steel Cutter, Manamorphose, Lava Dart. I think we just take the lightning bolt here. They've got a lot of Corrie steel cutters, but at a certain point, the steel cutters become a lot less useful. We could start cracking in here, or we could just have some nice shields up, because we win the late game, we have a massive lifelink creature that will beat our opponent. Right, so our guys are going to grow next turn when we play our Barrowgoyf. If we need to, we can go Dauthi Voidwalker Fatal Push instead. Dauthi Voidwalker not amazing on this board because it doesn't block. Are we going to see the Steel Cutter, or are we going to go for a Manamorphose to draw a card? I think those are the two main options our opponent has. The Manamorphose I don't like. You play the Steel Cutter. I guess they didn't find a land, I guess, is the issue. If they've had a land, because we knew they weren't drawing a land here. So if you... I think you just want to get your Steel Cutters down, though, and try and maximise the value you're getting. Because they have to imagine that we've got a Big Daddy Barrowgoyf on the way. Alright, so they're casting the Steel Cutter. Now this is going to generate another monk. I like this Corrie Steel Cutter card. I think it's cool. I think it's a good addition to the Legacy format. Might be my favourite card from the new set, actually. It was really fun. Try and get it on the channel a little bit more. Okay. So we know our opponent has access to 2 damage off of this Lava Dart. But this counts your second spell a turn, so they won't. It's not the second spell that this card sees. So they won't be able to make any more monks this turn, but they can get some prowess going. So this one has first strike, right? No, it's just trample and haste. So they have +2 on each of these guys. So if they +2 this one, it can trade with all of our things. I think we're just going to take 5 here. We can just recoup all of our life soon. So we're going to see the Lava Dart. That's not a surprise. I think this means we should have attacked. We didn't know how many spells our opponent was necessarily going to play. Right, so we're going to take a pretty large hit this turn. But then our opponent is going to be out of gas. So this is what? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That puts us to 4. So they can just put the Corrie Steel Cutter on this guy, and that sucks for us. Understood. So maybe it's going to take us longer to get the Barrowgoyf down. Because if we Barrowgoyf here, they just kill us with the Channeler. So we probably need to go deploy the Dauthi Voidwalker here. And then I guess we're just holding everything back here. Yeah, we could have played this one slightly differently. But they still got a Corrie Steel Cutter, so I'm glad we didn't take that with the thing. Alright, so this is all popping off. Oh, I made a mistake by not cracking this Polluted Delta, didn't I? Interesting. Yeah, we should have grown our Stalactite Stalkers. That was just a massive speed from me there. Alright, let's kill the flying guy. I'm going to make some big monks. Imagine if this was a 4-4 and this was a 3-3. That'd be so much better. Do they have a free spell here? I will trade off my board for their tokens here, because then we can just play a Barrowgoyf and win the game from that point on. We're going to have Delirium ourselves soon. Mutagenic Growth. Sure, this is going to give them 2 more tokens to attack with. That's going to be lethal, isn't it? Yeah, they had to draw a 0-cost spell there. And the fact that we didn't put counters on our guys doesn't really matter here. Yeah, so that's just 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We get to block some, but we take lethal damage here. Alright. Okay, well, this matchup should be pretty darn good for us. So that's something. Powder Keg blows up all their little rubbish guys. Duress is actively pretty interesting to me. The Plague Engineers, very solid. Snuff Outs are an interesting one. I don't think I want them. I don't think I want the Liliana either, but it's a maybe. So, him to Tourach, very good. Our opponent has a critical massive spells they're trying to resolve. The Barrowgoyf's obviously excellent. Maybe it's the Thoughtseizes that go here. I guess the Thoughtseize is probably better than a Duress. We just don't want to draw a bunch of Thoughtseizes though. The life loss is kind of relevant. Maybe I will take a Duress over the Thoughtseizes and we just roll with this. We could take the Liliana. Sucking cards away from our opponent is a thing that they really struggle with. Okay, we have turn 1 Stalactite Stalker, turn 2 Bowmasters. Yeah, this should be fine. I think we definitely could have played that one a touch differently. But I think our current hand here is going to be very good at messing with our opponent. A fetch land here would be nice, but we'll see. We missed a few attacks where we could have attacked if we weren't blocking. A Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay, so we'll just kill this. We could Fatal Push and play a Nethergoyf. Or we could just Bowmasters. I think we're just going to Bowmasters. Just get it out of here. Makes any sort of Manamorphoses annoying for our opponent to cast. A Wooded Foothills. A Monastery Swift Spear. Sure. We can kill this next turn. And tap for 1. Be my guest. We've got some action. There's just going to be a Lightning Bolt on our Stalactite Stalker. It is going to be exactly that. Sure. And a Mutagenic Growth. Sure. So this is basically like a Lightning Bolt for 0 mana at this point. We take 5, but then their guy will die next turn. A Dark Ritual. Does that change anything here? I don't believe it does. I think we're just playing the Nethergoyf here. The 2/3. So we can use a Dark Ritual to pump the size of our Nethergoyf. But we're just going to be making them pump some stuff into this, and then we'll just fail push it. A Corrie Steelcutter. Sure. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. I imagine this is going to make a guy. That's fine. How much damage are they going to try and force through here? They swing out. And just block him with this. I will block. And then I will just push it. And now our opponent's kind of in an awkward spot. Again, a Surveil land here? No. Just a mountain. So I will ping their face, I think. Okay, so Surveil land. We can kill this creature if we want to and swing for a bunch. I think that's fine. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token of their choice. Swing with the team. Our opponent's on 4 and we're on 14. Seeking of the Beast. Sure, that does not impact the board. What do they get rid of? A Channeler. Fine. They would need something else to equip the Channeler with. They do get to make a token here. But we have a lot of damage coming in. We got Surveil land to try and find another piece of action to get us over the line. Undercity Sewers, please. A Nethergoyf. That is quite a big boy. I think that is worth keeping around here. Alright, so we can attack with the Nethergoyf. I don't think we need to attack with the Orc Army because it just goes here and it doesn't matter. I'm going to take 3 maybe? No, they're just going to soak it up. We'll play a Nethergoyf. Many big boys coming our opponent's way here. Just wait till we find our Plague Engineer and name Monk. That's going to feel real good. Alright, they're going to 3. That makes both of our Nethergoyfs lethal. Or this little package of 2 creatures lethal. Going to play Questing Muck-Druid. Sure. We can Wasteland, there's no point doing it now. Urza's Bauble. Sure. This is not a card they want to activate either because of our little friend. So the Monk has been generated. This does not pump the Questing Druid because this specifically states colours, so it's like Quirion Ranger style. They can move the Steelcutter over to the Dragon's Rage channel if they want to. We can't block this. We're going to go to 10. Another Channeler, growing the Druid. Okay. Polluted Delta. Not the one here. So we attack with this and this. They have to block them both, which means they're losing 2 creatures. If we attack with the Orc Army, then the Dragon's Rage Channeler just goes and eats this. Intriguing. So this guarantees 2 of their creatures die. And one of them will have to be either the Druid or the Channeler. So I think that's worth doing. Alright, they're going under the bus with the Questing Druid. So they have 6 damage, 7 damage here. Let's try and cut them off of mana sources. I'm not going to play the cards out in our hand. We do not need them. They are cracking the Bauble. Interesting. So we can ping our opponent's creature. And that disincentivizes them for drawing 2 additional cards. But then they're just Corrie Steelcutter anyway. So I think we're right just to Bowmaster their face. So they need to find like Lightning Bolt here. Which isn't the hardest find. So they equip the Steelcutter. No, we got a Manamorphose here. Okay. But if we put a damage on this, it's the same as putting it on their face because the 3rd roll kills them instead of killing their guy. Okay. This is going to be tighter than I would have liked. Slick Shot Show Off. That makes a Monk that we can block. So there's currently 7 damage coming through. These 2 have to attack. Coming in with everything. We block the thing we can block here. A Lava Dart. This is going to be a Lightning Bolt's worth of damage. And the Slick Shot Show Off gives them enough to win here. Yeah, they have exactly lethal here. Yeah, I would happily play into this matchup over and over again with this black deck, but it just didn't come together for us there. That's interesting. Very curious. Interesting. I'd be quite happy to play in this matchup again, though. I think we just have, like, Barrowgoyf is really hard for them to beat, and we have a decent chunk of removal and interaction. Just didn't come together for us today. Very curious. I do like this deck quite a bit, though. Let's go to round 4. Thoughtseize into Bowmasters or Voidwalkers into maybe Barrowgoyf if we draw land. If not, we get to play the other one of our 2-drop. That seems like a nice curve. Let's Thoughtseize. Alright, our opponent's doing some stuff. That's what you're telling me. Alright. I guess it's the Entomb. That's kind of the thing that's holding this whole hand together. Although the problem is they can Dark Ritual, name Borborygmus Enraged, and then go. But they don't have an untapped land. We take the Dark Ritual. If they have an untapped land, they Entomb response, then our Dauthi Voidwalker never works. So I think we have to take the Entomb here and just hope they don't draw. Alright, I'm going to take the Entomb. This could go awry, but if we get to play the Dauthi Voidwalker next turn, then I think we're all good. I don't believe they're going to Cabal Therapy us naming Dauthi Voidwalker. That is the other option of the card that we could have taken. Alright, Underground Mortuary. So no untapped land. So we're not getting Cabal Therapied here. And we might just be able to shut our opponent down as early as next turn. Unmask. They drew an Unmask. That is brutal. Sure. Like, that was the draw they had to have. Oh dear, oh dear. And what do they pitch to that? A Shadow Grave. Okay, so they're going to Cabal Therapy out this Borborygmus. And then Animate Dead it. So this is, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they do stuff. Tough. It is a tough one. So we could play Stalactite Stalker and get the Undercity Sewers out of the way. I think that's what we need to do here. Let's play Undercity Sewers. A Dauthi Voidwalker, you are a little bit on the late side there. Are you still good enough? What is the text on Borborygmus? Put the top 3 cards of reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put the rest in the graveyard. So they will still get lands off of this. Okay, is that good enough, or do we need to try and dig into one of our 2 removal spells? Can I beat a Borborygmus? Maybe. It's only a 7/6. We can block it with a Death Touch guy. All right, we'll try that. Like if they had lands in hand, that might change things. They do know what we have in hand, so they can Cabal Therapy us and just take the Barrowgoyf. Alright, Dark Ritual. But if they want to Cabal Therapy themselves, like they do here, so they're going to Cabal Therapy, name Borborygmus Enraged. This goes to the graveyard. Animate Dead brings it back. They have a 6/6 Trampler that does stuff. Oh no. They named Grizzlebrand. That is significantly worse for us. Yep. Okay, our opponent's got the hits here. I'll tell you that much. So if they'd have put in the Borborygmus Enraged, we would have been okay for a bit. But now they're just going to draw 14 cards and we should lose the game. Yeah. Our main deck graveyard hate, not good enough. Are they going to Entomb Reanimate something here? Drawing 7 more cards. Why not? Just have all the cards their opponent enjoy. Now, we could have played the Orcish Bowmasters to stop this, but then we wouldn't have got our Surveil to get us closer to an answer to Borborygmus. Alright, they've got a lot of mana going on over there. They can definitely Entomb, Animate Dead. Show me what you've got. They can also Cabal Therapy themselves with the Grizzlebrand, if they think that's worth doing. Unlikely. They're targeting us. They've shown us the Spoils of the Vault, which means they've got the Witherbloom command package, so this is a good thing to be noting here. Took our Bowmasters. They're unmasking, targeting us, so they're going to take our Barrowgoyf. They're going to reanimate our Barrowgoyf. Okay, I think we can scoop it now. So by waiting around a little longer, we saw the Spoils of the Vault, so we know they've got the Witherbloom Apprentice Duke in the sideboard. I would like some Nihil Spellbombs. I would like a Duress. I would like this Faerie Macabres. And do I want some Oppo agents? I don't think so. So what do I not like here? I think we have to keep the Fail Push in because we know they have the Duke. How useful is Orcish Bowmasters? Like, it's fine against specifically Grizzlebrand. But that's it. Is this a... Okay, I guess we get rid of 2 Baubles because we're bringing in the Spellbombs anyway. Is this a Dark Ritual matchup? Probably, because getting the Dauthi Voidwalker out ahead of curve is important. Okay. Is this a Barrowgoyf matchup? I don't think it is. Because our opponents can just steal our Barrowgoyfs. And we've got enough threats in our deck that I think we'll be fine here. What does this hand do? Turn 1, play a guy, and then we immediately die. I think we mulligan this. Okay, this one works. I'm not ecstatic about it, but it's going to work. I guess we get rid of this Verdant Catacombs. Alright, who is the Dark Ritual deck now, opponent? We're going to need to find some more action here, but this means we don't die. So what do we have here? A Cabal Therapy, Chain of Smog, Reanimate, Spoils of the Vault. So they've just got all the things you would expect them to have. I guess we take the Witherbloom Apprentice. Then we hit them again. We take the Spores of the Vault probably. Then we play the Nihil Spellbomb. Okay, so we have their next attempt at Witherbloom covered. We have their graveyard covered. They can obviously just Chain of Smog us and we can just go to garbage time together. Reanimating the Witherbloom Apprentice. So now we can just hold open this Fatal Push for when the time is right. So we can get some more cards out of our opponent. There's a Bayou. They're probably going to Cabal Therapy us first. Guess we just kill this guy. We didn't really need to let them gain 1 life, but if they Chain of Smog and target themselves and just try and win this turn, then we can strip the remaining cards from our opponent's hand with the Chain of Smog. And that will probably be better for us. Alright, I will take this Bauble. I will... Do we want it right now? I don't think we're in any danger of losing right now. I don't want to get my hand discarded, so I'm not going to do it now. Let's look at top card of our opponent's library. It's a Thoughtseize. Alright. You can draw your Thoughtseize and have no targets. Beautiful. We'll draw an extra card. Hopefully we can deploy it. Nice little Dauthi or something. It is a nice little Dauthi. We know they've got a bunch of stuff here. I'm just going to ritual out our Dauthi Voidwalker here. That way we have the mana to cantrip off the Nihil Spellbomb if we need to crack it. And I don't expect that if we keep a card it's going to stay in our hand. We know our opponent's got a Thoughtseize. It's not going to get better really than us having a card in hand, right? So they're just going to fire it off. A Lotus Petal and pass. So a Witherbloom Apprentice from hand is something we're a little bit worried about. Right, let's just start attacking. We're going to pop out their exile zone so we can see anything that goes into it for the purposes of our Dauthi Voidwalker. You're going to Thoughtseize us. They're going to cast Spoils of the Vault. So this could just straight up kill our opponent. When your opponent casts this, it's normally the top card of their library. When you cast it, it's the bottom card of your library. That's magic. That's how numbers work. Right, so we've got a Dark Ritual here. So they're going to try and combo us off. They're Thoughtseizing us. I'm going to cast a Dark Ritual in response. And they're going to Dark Ritual. Then they're going to play the Witherbloom Apprentice. And we're in trouble here. They're going to target themselves with Chain of Smog. Sure. We'll let the first one happen. Just to get rid of their cards. And then they copy it again. And then we crack the Null Spellbomb. A Nethergoyf. We're dead. Okay. Yeah. Pretty much crushed by Blue-Black Reanimator. Sorry, by Black-Green Reanimator. This Witherbloom Apprentice Duke is pretty good. So we could have used our Null Spellbomb to answer the first reanimated Witherbloom. But then we would have been cold to all their reanimation stuff. Just the power of Dukes in Legacy at the moment is more than I've ever seen it, to be honest. Never before has Transformational Sideboards been so good, in my view. Alright, let's go to the final round. We're currently 2-2 after a good start. Let's see if we can get a positive. We don't have any action here. I would like some action. I'm going to mulligan. Okay. Throw away a Wasteland. Or we could keep all the Wastelands, throw away a Dauthi Voidwalker, and maybe just ride our little friend to victory here. Like, triple Wasteland can steal a non-zero amount of Legacy games. We will see if this is one of those games. I think our opponent, if I remember rightly, plays quite a few combo decks where Orcish Bowmasters can be quite good. Alright. Wasteland, here we come. No Urza Saga for you, opponent. So I have the inclination that our opponent is playing... Alright, Urza's Power Plant. Don't see those every day. Right, welcome to garbage time. I would prefer to play the Bowmasters, if possible. I would rather save this for a Stalactite Stalker. I think I'm going to play the Bowmasters here. Let's get ahead with this. Ping our opponent down. Now, maybe we're supposed to play the Dauthi Voidwalker, but seeing the Urza lands makes me think our opponent is going to be trying to do, like, the One Ring type stuff. This is awkward for us. Mystic Forge, sure. I think playing a Nexus is the correct land to hit here. So, what are we playing out? Do I like the Orcish Bowmasters more or the Stalactite Stalker? The Stalactite Stalker grows here, but then we don't have a follow-up play. I think I like the Dauthi Voidwalker more. Right, get out of here playing a Nexus. I'm going to save the Mishra's Bauble to grow our Stalactite Stalker next turn. If we draw a third land. Or a Dark Ritual. Urza's Workshop. A Grim Monolith. You got it. So our opponent's deck's going to have things like the One Ring in it. So his Orcish Bowmasters is doing something. They'll take key. Sure. So you're saying it's a Powder Keg matchup. That's what I'm hearing. It's playing a whole bunch of stuff off the top. Exiling a defense grid. Untapping the Grim Monolith. These like Mystic Forge style decks are really good still. Like, yes, Vexing Bauble was a big hit. It just meant that the deck could just Goldfish. But it can still Goldfish really effectively. The only thing that it kind of struggles with is multiple counterspells. But it has so much ability to just play Haymaker after Haymaker. Like, you have to counter the One Ring. You have to counter Karn. You have to counter Mystic Forge. There's just so many payoffs. We can't target them with Bowmasters because of the One Ring, so we have to target our own Orc army. Thoughtseize, we can't target our opponent. I'm going to play out this Orcish Bowmasters now, because otherwise our opponent can like tap the ring and do a load of stuff in response. This just means that there's a whole bunch of One Ring stuff going on that our opponent has to... Sorry, a whole bunch of Orcish Bowmaster pings that's going to shut down their One Ring. They take one from this. Every time they tap it, they're going to be taking 2 for every card they draw. That is a lot. So they're going to try and leverage the Mystic Forge more than the One Ring here. Alright, so they're going for some mana through the untapping of the Grim Monolith. A Glaring Fleshraker. This can kill us this turn quite readily. We'll see if it does. Without tapping the One Ring, it might prove difficult, but we'll see. Alright, they've got a Basalt Monolith over there. It's a +1 mana play because of the Glaring Fleshraker, whereas normally it's mana neutral. But obviously it becomes mana when you have the Manifold Key. Alright, so Ugin Eye of Storms. Sure. So now they're going to exile our Bowmaster and they should just be able to win here. It's kind of like Summon Microspawn. It's an uncounterable way of blowing up our stuff. Doesn't hit lands, which is something. But they're going to play Khan the Great Creator. They're going to remove our Orcish Bowmaster. Oh, they're removing our Dauthi Voidwalker. That's even weirder. They haven't activated the Ugin yet. So they're going to go and get something with Karn and then probably play it with the Ugin. And then exile the Bowmasters and then they can start ripping with the... okay, Pithing Needle is just a very cheap way that they can remove one of our permanents. Okay. This seems bad for us. They'll probably name, I don't know, Wasteland or something. I don't think we get to win from here. I don't want to play this game anymore. Let's go to the sideboard. Null Rod, please join the fray. Null Rod and Powder Keg, both useful. Plague Engineer isn't the worst. Duress, actively useful here. Snuff Out's pretty good. Liliana, okay. It's probably not going to be a Barrowgoyf matchup. We've brought out the Baubles because we're boarding in Null Rod and Powder Keg. Sorry, we're boarding the Null Rods, so the Baubles are worse. We want to be able to Dark Ritual to power out some disruptive elements. Alright, so the reason we're running a bunch of like removal is because Glaring Fleshraker is how they win if you get a Null Rod down. They just say, okay, well, I'm just going to play a bunch of spells, you're going to die. So Plague Engineer shuts off of the Eldrazi spawns. The Null Rod's going to shut off a bunch of other things. The Snuff Out can kill their guy. We're doing what we can do. This hand will not cut it against what our opponent's doing. Thoughtseize into some stuff, I guess. I think this is acceptable. I don't think the Dauthi Voidwalker is where I want to be here. Right, Thoughtseize into Nethergoyf plus Nethergoyf plus Wasteland is okay. I don't feel great about this one. We don't have enough Null Rods. Normally when I would build my own Monoblack decks, I would have more Null Rods. So there's some stuff here, for sure. Like I guess we take the Flesh Raker. The Edict can answer the Khan. The Wasteland can keep it at bay. I like Edict here because it heals Planeswalkers. And there's some pretty spooky Planeswalkers in our opponent's deck. Urza's Saga, sure. They're probably going to play out the Key and the Opal here. So Wasteland the Saga, make an Nethergoyf. Take us further away from Liliana, but we can't let this Saga untap because it'll probably just beat us anyway. So we got a little 2-3 on the board. If we draw a land, we can Sheoldred's Edict away a Khan. And that will grow our Nethergoyf. If we draw a Dark Ritual, we can get this Liliana in and just start draining our opponent's resources, whilst also pumping our own graveyard. That's best case scenario, I think, doing that. Playing a Nexus. So they're giving themselves a chance to cast Khan next turn if things go well for them. A Fatal Push. Not a useful one here. This 2 damage a turn is probably not going to be enough. The Ancient Tomb will help us a little bit. A Glaring Flesh Raker. We need to be able to put something in the bin to actually kill this. We need Revolt because it's a 3-drop. Okay, we will cast a spell we have that answers the thing they have. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Goodbye, Flesh Raker. It's annoying that we had to use that because now we don't have a direct answer for the Khan. We can obviously pressure the Khan, but it's awkward. I think our opponent's drawn another one. The One Ring. Okay, I think we're just going to lose to this. They get to draw 3 cards this turn, and then 7 cards next turn. Like, what are we supposed to do about this? This card is not okay. A Dauthi Voidwalker, you are pretty irrelevant. No point attacking here. Do we play a Fatal Push or do we play Dauthi? Does it matter? I don't think it matters either way. I think we play the Dauthi, rather than holding up a push that we might not be able to use. Like, their creatures are unlikely to be ones we can kill. Like, the Flesh Raker is not something we can kill this turn. Ugin, Eye of Storms. Yeah, we can pack it in. So, the Khanforge deck, when it had Vexing Bauble, was the best deck in Legacy and had really, really good win rates. When it comes to playing against decks that don't have counter spells, the deck is just as good as it was then. And arguably better because they're running fewer Vexing Bauble style things and just more Haymakers, so it's much better against a deck that looks like ours. So, yeah, pretty rough. That means we finish with a pretty sad looking 2-3. We started off strong, but then it did not come together. Now, I think the mono-red deck, we were pretty close to winning the games we lost. I think that matchup is fine, but sometimes it's going to break badly for us. And the Reanimator matchup, they did like draw the exact thing 2 turns in a row. Obviously, they just crushed us game 1. But game 2, we were a bit unlucky on that one. Game 3, our opponent being on the draw, maybe that's a bit awkward for us. But yeah, these were 0-2, so it wasn't particularly close overall in terms of how the games planned out match-wise. So, what do I think about this deck? I think this deck is really good into like your tempo-y style decks. So the reason I used to like playing the Mono Black deck and the reason I took it to ELM a couple of years ago was that when you are playing Orcish Bowmasters and your Orcish Bowmasters are really good against your opponent and theirs are just fine, like we're not drawing extra cards really, so Bowmasters isn't a thing that we care about, whereas this shuts down our opponents pretty hard. So it ends up being really good into blue matchups. We're good against Wasteland. I think this deck probably needs... I don't want to say it needs another land, but maybe it needs one more land. It's a possibility. You could play 61 with one land, but that sounds a bit weird. But yeah, like we did get a little bit stuck under our own feet a little bit. Now, obviously, we're trying to use Dark Ritual, just power stuff out, and then just have our 1 and 2 drops do the rest of the work for us. I quite like playing slightly bigger builds with Sheoldred, but I think we're living in a different world now. There's no Troll of Khazad-dûm, so it doesn't quite come together the same way. But yeah, I think this deck is perfectly serviceable. It's going to have some issues against some of the combo decks. I think we need more stuff to address that. So like more Hymn to Tourach would be a good way of doing that. And I think you want more than one Null Rod. One Null Rod is just not enough to reliably have. I think you need at least 2 Null Rods to try and stop some of these artifact decks, because we're just going to get absolutely bodied by them time and time again with this particular layout. And I've seen a lot more people gravitating towards the Khanforge decks in the last week, so I'm expecting that to become more and more of a player as time goes on, because the deck is intrinsically very powerful. And I think Ugin is a nice, interesting bit of extra juice to squeeze out, where you can just go, oh, I've got this uncounterable Vindicate that also just pops off my whole thing. It tops up my life total, and like if you get an Ugin and play with that deck, you win. It's really hard to come back from that. So, and obviously the One Ring is a very fundamentally busted Magic card, and the Khanforge deck is the best deck at abusing the One Ring in my opinion. So it's not a bad place to be. So yeah, put some more Null Rods in your sideboard. Maybe we want some ley lines instead of Faerie Macabres. I understand the Faerie Macabres are getting back with Barrowgoyf, but by the time you're doing that, then your Barrowgoyf's, you know, your opponent's already going to kill you before you're connecting with a Barrowgoyf most of the time, unless you have a turn 1 Barrowgoyf. And I think just having the ley lines is just a safer way of doing it for the most part. And you can definitely tweak with some of the other numbers in the sideboard. Like, what is this one Liliana doing when we can have, like, another Hymn to Tourach? What did Liliana do for us? We brought it in and couldn't cast it because it cost 3 mana. I don't think this is the right play. So there's definitely ways you could improve this deck, but I do quite like these Monoblack decks. It's some good fair, like, back and forth Magic with the occasional Dark Ritual Flourish. It's just a good, fun way to play Legacy and Magic on a whole. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.